Welcome in, folks. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. Thank you so much for your patience. I've been on hiatus for the last week, taking care of some family emergencies, but we are back. We are creating content once again, and we have some things to catch up on, and we're going to talk right now about the two cards coming out the 2nd of April. So we're recording this the day before. We just watched the Thunderbolts developer update for the April season. Let's talk about the two cards that are about to drop. The Season Pass, Baron Zemo, and the, Red Hulk, which is just, in my opinion, freaking insane. But let's talk about Baron Zemo first, okay? He's a 3/5 on reveal. Recruit the lowest cost card from your opponent's deck to your side of the location. First and foremost, recruit is not a new trigger word. They're just theming Baron Zemo. You can see it in the whole video as well. You can see that they're saying, hey, listen, come join me. I'm recruiting you. Come onto this side of the battlefield. He drops on down, transforms, says, join us, and then brings a card over, okay? That's what he's doing. It's not a whole new thing. Let's not make it any bigger than it needs to be. That's been confirmed. Secondly, this is a 3/5 that's pulling something onto the board. If it pulls, in this instance, it pulls a time stone, right? You're gonna see a lot of Thanos, because Thanos is Thanos, and they haven't addressed it yet. Second dinner, I'm watching you, okay? This is still a 3/8 by pulling a stone. Yet alone could pull something else larger. This is why Yondu was changed in the most recent OTA, because Baron Zemo is supposed to be a card that gets a good card out there. So if you're looking to play Baron Zemo, in my opinion, on turn 3, know that you have a much higher chance of getting a crappy card. That's just how it is. However, if you let the game play out, then if you're using it on turn 5 or turn 6 even, you have a much higher chance of getting a really strong card. And this is a win-win-win all across the board. So I think that if you're gonna be using Baron Zemo, 100%, as we get another sub here on stream, thank you so much. If you wanna come join us for the live stream, join us here on twitch.tv/ItsGuestGaming. If we are looking at what he does later in the game, he's pulling those just-in-case cards, right? Yes, he's stealing from your opponent, kind of like what Cable does, but now it's a free play. It's automatically on the board. And there are very few hits that will be detrimental. If you know you're going up against a destroy deck, chances are, if you use it early, okay, you might be able to work around that if it was a Carnage or even if it's a 3/5 and hits Deathlock. All right, it's not the end of the world. It's still a 3/5 for a 3/5. But just be careful knowing who your opponent is in the first two. But if you wait later on and you see that they haven't played X, Y, and Z cards, chances are you will be able to capitalize on that. So I like Baron Zemo because he's just beefy. And we've seen Baron Zemo get a buff on the back end in the data mines. Originally, he was a 4/6. Then he was changed to a 3/4. And now he's being released as a 3/5. If he's being released as a 3/5, a lot of people are going to go off and basically say that he's a good card that just got crazy good. And in my opinion, this is a more influential buff than what we saw happen to Black Swan, because the exact same thing happened to Black Swan. She was data mined at a 3/4, ended up releasing at a 3/5. I think that this is more substantial, though, because of the potential of what this card can pull at 3/5 versus the extra ramp that would come from a Black Swan synergy comparatively. So let's put that comparison out there onto the board, number 1. Number 2, how you use him is incredibly important because it is going to pull from the deck, not pull from hand, and it will do the on reveal or the ongoing of whatever that card is. If it pulls a Quake, it'll activate Quake's ability. If it pulls a Gladiator, it'll use Gladiator's ability all the way through. So just be careful how you're choosing to use him, because I do think that there are good ways to take advantage of this, right? You're thinning your opponent's deck, which in some instances is very good for your opponent. But if you learn how to play around it, you actually can be buffing yourself because your stats that you put onto the board are more influential than thinning their deck, because you're also getting information. You're getting a tremendous amount of stats, ideally, for only 3 cost. This can be played around. So you're going to see people do things like this. You're going to see mill decks. This is my Miller Lite deck. This is a deck that's ideally focused on taking away your opponent's cards from the control of your opponent. You're removing them from the deck, and I put in Doc Ock in here to remove them from your hand. I'm playing Cosmo in here because Cosmo is going to become a more influential card, more and more and more and more and more. Again, we all talk about, well, you just play Cosmo as a counter. Well, yes, but Cosmo has a double purpose here. One, he's a defense card, and two, you can then also put behind Cosmo if you don't want to draw from your opponent's deck. Put that Baron Zemo behind there, put that Gladiator behind there, or put that Doc Ock behind there. Now, with cards like Grandmaster, which will help you to get that Yondu off into turn number 1, play it off into your right-hand lane. Grandmaster on 2, you've now thinned 2 cards out of your opponent's deck. You can play Cable, thin the top card out of your opponent's deck. Gladiator, pull another card out and probably destroy it more often than not. This is removing the deck from your opponent. You want to do that as much as possible, right? If you're going to play Doc Ock, you know you're going to get Shang-Chi'd, so you got to look at all of the other potential plays. I'll be right there. Gotta love when we get interrupted because my family's home. Hooray! But anywho, so as we go on, yay live recordings, as we go on and we look at what the deck is also going to break down, we could play Wong on turn 3 even, into getting multiple cards out from Baron Zemo on turn 4 and fill that lane. There's a couple of different things we can do here, and I like that mill decks may end up with a place in Marvel Snap. Is it the right place? I don't know. But let's take a look at other things that we could potentially do as we just get a YouTube sub at the moment too. I'm gonna call this Gimme Gimme Jund. So this is taking the variation of a Jund deck. Kraken Null has made this incredibly famous. It's his favorite deck to play, but I wanna play it differently. I wanna load the opponent's hand and remove it. So we've got Moon Knight and Black Bolt to thin out, and Silver Samurai to get rid of the opponent's hand. We can bring cards back if we do the Ghost Rider combination with Silver Samurai, which is ideally hitting our Iron Man. But between Yondu, Cable, and Maximus, we are removing cards from their deck, and Baron Zemo, of course. We're removing cards from their deck incredibly fast by forcing them into places that they don't want them to be. Their hand, because we're gonna get rid of them. That's the whole goal. We're gonna get rid of their cards by either drawing it or forcing them to discard it. So I'm putting Maximus in here because that's a tempo play. It's a 2/6 that you can now play on turn 6. Load your opponent's hand intentionally because it also helps your Baron Zemo more often than not because it's a thinner deck to choose from. For Baron to pull out a card because you probably sent a lower cost card via Maximus into their hand. So now we're playing it backwards. We're not trying to remove necessarily with Yondu if we don't pull it. We're forcing into the hand and reducing our chances to see what could potentially come out with Baron Zemo. And then Black Bolt, Stature, always a great combination. I still think that we should be able to see Black Bolt and Stature get a buff back to the 5/7 and 5/8 that they were previously at. They are not a problem anymore. Those 2 points of power, in my opinion, deserve to go back. If you agree, let me know down in the comments below. But this is just a Jund variation of trying to get Baron Zemo's recruitment to be beneficial in a different way. On top of that, I'm calling this Zemost broken Loki-bird. It's a Loki deck. Look, Loki just makes sense because it plays cards like Mockingbird, right? Mockingbird is gonna take advantage of all of these card generation cards, Maria Hill, even Nico Minoru transforming something into a demon. You've got the Snow Guard animals, you've got Agent Coulson, and Baron Zemo now reducing down the Mockingbird. But in a Loki deck in particular, they all end up synergizing together because Baron Zemo very often, if you're not doing any thinning mechanics, is probably gonna most likely pull a 1-cost card. So we're gonna look to benefit it with Cull Obsidian. We're gonna look to defend by lowering the cost of that Mockingbird because even just Baron Zemo into the next card is going to be a Mockingbird at 4/9, which is insanely good stats as is. You could load up your hand, Loki on 5, call it a day. I do think that something along these lines will be incredibly strong. Elsa Bloodstone is going to have an influence here. I thought about Kitty Pryde and maybe looked at Hope Summers, but I like the all-in Loki on this, considering that Cull Obsidian and Mockingbird are good turn 4 plays leading to a Loki on 5, and then just swarm everything on turn 6. So I do think that there's something to be said there when it comes to Baron Zemo helping out the board for Elsa Bloodstone, which fills well into Loki decks and helps out Mockingbird simultaneously, because you can then look at how Zemo is pulling for Cull Obsidian or Mockingbird. So I think there's a double synergy in there that I really enjoyed. And then lastly, I'm gonna pull out for an inclusion deck of Baron Zemo, I'm putting in Surfer because it's a 3-cost card, but more so because there's a mix between defense and offense here. And one of the things that constantly happens with Surfer decks is you feel underpowered. So you are looking for that Sebastian Shaw. You are looking for that Gladiator. You are looking for those extra reinforcements to your Brood. And yes, Forge, Brood, Abs is still a great combination. But Zemo is now saying, I'm a 3/5. I'm gonna get a reinforcement, even if you get both Silver Surfer and Absorbing Man to both do procs. That Zemo's stopping at 3/9, you can't Shang-Chi it. And it has other power on top of it because it pulled another card just for, funsies. Chances are, Zemo is your best combination play towards turn 4, 5, or 6. You're not looking to play this out on turn 3 in this deck. You're looking to play your Dakin. You're looking to ideally maybe hope, we're seeing a lot of Magic come out there because there's a lot of Tribunals. If they Magic, because I had Magic in here for Negasonic Teenage Warhead, you could gladly make that substitution if you wish, but I didn't want to go double in with Magic and Sarah, even though that does work great for Surfer deck. I like the control aspect of Negasonic Teenage Warhead because you can gain priority with this version because of Gladiator, because of Dakin, because of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, being able to kill a bigger card later on. It's a good control piece for this deck. Killmonger, of course, is in here, which might kill what you put out with Baron Zemo, but if it didn't pull a 1-cost card, it's just extra bonus power. So I really like what Baron Zemo specifically is going to bring to Marvel Snap, because it will show a new element of board fill, information, cheap card. But let's be honest here. This is the Season Pass. The Season Pass, lots of people like to play the Season Pass. So in the first week, you're gonna see a lot of Baron Zemo. You might want to get prepared for that. So if you're not getting the Season Pass, or if you want to climb to Infinite incredibly fast, I'm gonna tell you some bad news. This is gonna be the deck you want to play. It's a Galactus deck. And I'll tell you why. Because if you don't draw the Hood, or you don't draw Selene, Baron Zemo's going to draw one of those 2 cards, and both of them hurt your opponent but help you. They put a -3 on the other side, or it hits Selene, which is just a card on their other side, negatively influences their hand, but helps you because you would have wanted to play Selene anyway to reduce down either your Hood, your Green Goblin, or your Hobgoblin. So might as well leave those in your deck if you don't draw them. It's a win-win scenario. Hell, you could even get Green Goblin to get pulled on out, and then Annihilus it back over if they Zemo out your Green Goblin. You have so many different combinations here of what you can do from a, let's be honest, a toxicity standpoint. So that's why I'm calling this Disrespect Zemo's Surroundings, because we're going to look to build a Galactus junk deck that can counter the fact that you're pulling out my cards. 3 out of my 4 lowest cards here can be removed. Even Black Widow, we can remove. I think it would be incredibly disgusting to even say Black Widow, you know what? Let's do this. Let's take Black Widow and remove her from the conversation and just be all of the chaos. Do you like chaos? I like chaos. We're gonna impromptu live make this change. Black Widow to, assuming I could spell it, Havoc. And leave Jeff in there. So 4 out of the 5 lowest cost cards in the deck are just disgusting cards for Zemo to pull. Because if Havoc gets pulled, game over. Game over. Game over. You see Yondu on 1, and you have Havoc in the deck by turn 3, snap. You know it'll get pulled, you're gonna get an extra cube guaranteed. So there's a lot of cool fun. That can be done with playing around Baron Zemo. But in general, I do think Baron Zemo is a very positive thing for Marvel Snap. I think it is a good card that deserves some recognition. Now, on top of Baron Zemo, we also have more cards coming this week. We have Red Hulk. Now, Red Hulk is not Red Bed Broad, but Red Hulk is a tremendously overstated card. Tremendously overstated card. But from this video, we just discovered if we slow down the video all the way to 0.25, you can see that your opponent, if they have Red Hulk in hand, your opponent's Red Hulk will reveal itself to you and show the power of Red Hulk that's in hand, just like how Apocalypse does it. And to me, that is a huge piece. Here he comes out of the top corner onto the battlefield to show you he goes up from 15 to 19 and then goes back into your opponent's hand. That mechanic is insane. That you get to see how big of a Red Hulk you're potentially going up against. So now there's a downside finally to playing Red Hulk because I didn't see it. I couldn't figure out what the downside was to Red Hulk. Now it's the fact that your opponent knows. They know you have a 6, 15, 19, 23, whatever in your hand viable for something. That's vicious. But it doesn't erase the fact that he is one big, giant, beefy dude. So what do you do with big, giant, beefy dudes? You throw it in Evo. And you throw it into a big Evo. You throw it into an obnoxious Evo. Old school, toxic Evo. With Magic and Cyclops and Abomination and Thing. You just throw all of it because they can't Shang-Chi you everywhere. But chances are, if you get Magic down, there will be at least 2 turns that they float. Something at some point. That's going to be a 6/15, and that's more secure than what you get with Infinite. Guaranteed 6/15. I'll take that any day of the week, even if it happens one time, and that's it. Because they know that you'll have a Red Hulk. But do you have the other Hulk? Do you have She-Hulk? Do you have A-Bomb? Red Hulk 100% removes Infinite from the Evo lists unless if the Evo list is running either Pixie or War Machine, in my opinion. This completely removes Infinite from future She-Hulk decks because Red Hulk is more consistent and more viable. I think that's going to be an absolutely fantastic thing. But speaking of War Machine, Red Hulk in Shuri Taskmaster is going to be stupid. It's going to be stupid. The idea that you can Hope Summers on 3 or Magic on 3, then Shuri on 4. Float if you want to. If you Magic into Shuri, float 5. Infinite 6, Taskmaster 7. Or best case scenario, Hope Summers into Shuri. Okay. Red Hulk on 5 into Magneto into Scar and Taskmaster. Like, the amount of power that will happen in each lane in individual cards is going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely enormous. And I think that this type of deck, which thrives on armor, not Kyera, because yes, there's a lot of 6-drops here, but you need only 1 to be secure to throw inconsistency and cause retreats. And in the curve of this, the 3-cost card does not work. So I put in armor in here because you only need 1 place to be 100% secure. Super Giant is a huge player in here. If you go Hope Summers into Super Giant into Blob, that's a great card too. Or Hope Summers Super Giant into Taskmaster. Hide the card and then Blob on 6. Taskmaster reveals, copies the Blob. And if Blob is taking on 11 power even from the deck. That's a big beefy dude. So yeah, there's going to be some Shuri craziness that comes out of using Red Hulk, because even if it stays in the deck, it's still 11 power, y'all. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I've been loving Black Knight decks. I've been loving Black Knight decks. I've been loving them, just in general. They're, I think, a great fun archetype. And all this is, for the black and red, it's taking that War Machine variation of it and now getting rid of Giganto. You're removing the throttle of Giganto because between turns 1 through 6, the chances that your opponent uses every energy every turn that you have Red Hulk is low. And then it's a much more flexible 615, if not higher. Worst case scenario, it ends up being a 411 Ebony Blade, which is still fantastic and can't be destroyed. So taking out Giganto, putting in Red Hulk. For Cull Obsidian, I also was running Magneto for a very long time. I got hooked on Jeff Hoagland, who introduced me to the Cull Obsidian variation versus Magneto, and I agree more so now than before because of Black Knight and Blade that Cull Obsidian, whether you use War Machine or not, ends up being better than the, Magchizo, who is great and you could use in this deck if you don't have Cull Obsidian. But I like the notion of let's keep it even lower on what you're trying to do here, and Lady Sif has less targets that ends up being more beneficial for you. So thoroughly enjoy, throw it into a Black Knight deck. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Okay. Now, with Red Hulk, I know you're going to look at this and be like, what the hell are you thinking? I'm calling this twice as red. It's putting it into a Moon Girl She-Hulk deck because it's removing the notion of Infinite She-Hulk, Moon Girl, where you're doing that whole magic on 3, Moon Girl 4, float on 6. This is doing it without magic. This is making it a pixie deck that throws out wide cards like Squirrel Girl as well, and then builds stats late. So you've got wide players like Dr. Doom, and Martyr can actually survive now because double Martyr, if you get 2 Moon Girls out on the board, remember, they only resolve 1 at a time. So 2 Martyrs on the board is way better than 1 Martyr on the board. Always way, way better, and that's a 1/5 guaranteed. You could put Ant-Man, but I like the spice of Martyr. Pixie Mobius, if you have that in your hand, snap. Plain and simple, snap. Squirrel Girl is in here to help out with the Mockingbird, and Dr. Doom in particular is just a final turn maybe play. I think it's the best way to word it. If you could get down Quinjet and Moon Girl and get down that Dr. Doom on turn 5, it's great, but you don't need to necessarily ramp it out. I don't see a need to do that. You could take out Dazzler in that instance and put in Wave, but I don't see it necessary because this is a pixie deck that features Moon Girl She-Hulk. Red Hulk is playing into the fact that he's just going to be a flexible, big, beefy card that you can synergize with everything else on the board. So I'm calling this twice as red because Moon Girl gives a whole bunch of reduction. You've got Quinjet in there. You've got a lot of cards you could drop on the board, 2 8s that you could drop on the board. I just think that's going to be incredibly safe to mess with. So, look, let's just be honest here. Red Hulk is a big, beefy guy. He's absolutely insane as a beefy player for Marvel Snap. Do I think you should use your collector's tokens to get him? I'm not gonna say no, but I am pretty safely gonna say he's a good card. I just can't justify to Mr. Red Broad here that 6K is worth it for beef. With Cull Obsidian, it was a 410 that we could justify out as 310 because of Zabu, and it's just pretty beefy, but earlier beef. This is late beef, and late beef wants to be cheated or used secondarily. Throw it into your Hella deck, hell. I think this is one worth your Spotlight keys, but I don't think Red Hulk is necessary for you to use 6K tokens. If you have Spotlight keys, I'd say open it. Go for it. As for Baron Zemo, I think that Baron Zemo is great. I think Baron Zemo is a good card, and I think a lot of people are going to sleep on him. I think that he is going to be surprising people with his stats very early on, because they don't expect this to be good until they realize how easy it is on turn 6 to play this in a Ms. Marvel deck. Like, there's a lot of good things you can do with Baron Zemo. I'm a fan of both. So I'm going to go over here and say thank you. Thank you so much. Again, this is a double video talking about both Baron Zemo and Red Hulk. We are trying to catch up on content. We've been gone for the last week, and we are now back live, doing the live streaming everything as we normally do here on Twitch. YouTube videos will continue to come back out. We're scheduled to have an OTA this week, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below, because we're going to have lots of information coming out at lots of different times here on this channel. I appreciate all of you for liking, subscribing, hanging out, and enjoying what I think is going to be a damn good card here in Baron Zemo and Red Hulk. Cheers, everyone.